What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we dive down to Arkansas to speak with Raif of Bones of the Earth. Thank you so much for your time today, man. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. I was just listening to your new album too, Eternal
Cool.
Meditations of a Deathless Crown. What was sort of like the thought process going into the making of this? I know that you guys take a lot of inspiration from sort of like sci-fi and fantasy elements. So was there kind of like a goal or a message that you were trying to convey with this album? How did Eternal Meditations of a Deathless Crown sort of see the light of day?
Honestly, I mean, we needed a sequel to the first one, and we've just been super into the concept and really digging into that. And I don't know, we just kind of all decided to roll with that for a little while. There's not really a particular goal or message behind it other than just I don't know, three nerdy guys writing a sci-fi fantasy concept album. So
Yeah. Well, you said you mentioned that you needed the sequels to which is the imminent decline of human spirit, and like, do you recommend that if a listener is just discovering you now before they check out Eternal Meditations, they should listen to the first album to sort of like get a full idea of it?
yeah, I think so. You know, you get the full story with it. So I'd say so.
Hmm. Having these sort of like sci-fi inspirations and these fantasy inspirations, obviously, that determines the lyrics behind it. But why do you feel that maybe like the music that you have to have like this hardcore sort of doom aspect, why do you feel that this sort of style best supports that concept in a way?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends on the album, I guess, because like the first one I think was a little more progressive as far as like instrumentally how it all works, I guess. But the second one was a little heavier, and we kind of really wanted to drive home the idea that it's this like crazy machine world, and there's all kinds of like strange rhythms and stuff like that. In the second one, whereas the first one is a little more straightforward and a little more, it's a little more progressive, a little more riffy, I guess.
You mentioned that with Eternal Meditations, you wanted it to be slightly heavier. Was that something that you kind of went into the studio knowing that this is what you wanted to do, or did it kind of just happen that way?
It kind of just happened that way. Bones, we've been lucky enough to where it's like the three of us can get into a room and just start jamming, and we just kind of remember what we did and then start building off of that. With it's definitely a just kind of a feel it out experience. You go in, you just start jamming and see what happens.
And I'd imagine that there's like a very organic process that it goes into it, right? Like there's no like preconceived idea that you're kind of enslaved to.
No. I mean, it's really like I said, just the three of us get into a room and just start playing around and see what happens. And then we'll stumble across something that's really cool, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, we got to remember that for later, and then start building off of that.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, and as being that your music is sort of conceptually driven, in terms of the lyrics, do you sometimes have the lyrics written out before you even write the music, or do you need
Um,
music before you put pen to paper?
yeah, it's actually the opposite. We usually do everything instrumentally first, and then we'll do the lyrics. Um, and we'll have an idea. We'll have like kind of like an outline of what we think might happen as far as the concept goes throughout the album, and then we'll write everything instrumentally. And we might have some ideas for lyrics here and there, but for the most part, it's all instrumental first, and then we do the lyrics afterwards.
Hmm. Do you want the music to be open to interpretation, kind of going back to what we spoke about before, or do you kind of want the listener to be engaged in the music or in the concept just as much as the music?
I definitely, I mean, personally, I think it'd be cool for it to be open to interpretation. Um, like I said, there wasn't, before I said there wasn't really a goal or like specific kind of anything that we're trying to, put across through the album. But I mean, there is for me personally, there's things that about the album and about the lyrics and the concept that mean certain things to me specifically. But yeah, I think it'd be better to just kind of keep it to, anybody can take what they need to do out of it.
Do your personal experiences or your personal lives ever influence lyrics or the music at all as well, or has music always been a way to kind of like distance yourself from the reality that we live in?
I think it's a little bit of both, you know. I mean, part of the reason why we made this, you know, science fantasy concept thing is that it's just a nice escape, you know. It's a nice way to just be like, well, let's just focus on this for a little bit, you know, or let's just think about this for a little while and not really worry too much about what's really going on. And sometimes it's necessary, you know.
Yeah. Has there ever been any books or movies or other artistic mediums that kind of influence this? Because, I mean, when it comes to sci-fi, you could talk about Terminator, you could talk about The Matrix, you could talk about 1984, you could talk about
Oh yeah.
just about any video game that's out there. Like, so
Yeah.
to you, like, what kind of engaged you into this? Was there ever a specific thing?
You know, I mean, for me personally, I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. That's like my go-to for sci-fi stuff, and has been for a while. I've played through that trilogy. I can't even tell you how many times, but that definitely has some pretty big influences. But we're all fantasy nerds, you know. I mean, we're like Skyrim, Lord of the Rings, you know, all that stuff. And I have like a weekly Dungeons and Dragons group that I play in, so I'm actually really into that. So I don't know. I think it all kind of came together to really just make Bones, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny too because I know that Liz and Dave they actually work with a band called Gygax, which has like a Dungeons and
That's sick. That's
yeah,
cool.
you know who they are?
No, I haven't heard of them, but I'm definitely gonna look them up now
Yeah,
because that's awesome.
they bring like a Dungeons and they sing about Dungeons and Dragons. That's the theme of their band, but they like their music sounds legit like as good as Led Zeppelin. It's like Led Zeppelin,
Yes.
like
That's awesome.
it's incredible. Are any of you Legend of Zelda fans at all? Because that was my
Oh,
gateway.
Eric. Yeah, Eric, 100%. He's super into like the more old school games and like I don't know, like anything Nintendo. He's all about it. So
Just
yeah, he'd be the one to talk to about
make
that.
sure make sure you show him my Zelda tattoo.
Oh, nice. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's cool because I've always said that art influences art in a way, and these
Yeah,
sci-fi movies and stuff. I think it's cool that you're able to translate it into metal. I mean, like again, it's really cool. Like Mastodon, they write a lot of concept albums. My Chemical
right.
Romance writes a lot of concept albums. Fear Factory does concept albums. It's really cool how like art could influence other forms of art. You know what I mean? With like one
Yeah.
album, it could lead to the creation of a bunch of other things.
Well, it's storytelling at the core, you know, and I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about it is that it's a medium to use to tell a story that you want to tell, and I think that's just really fun.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like doing that.
Yeah, and of course, like your albums are not shuffle friendly, as I like to say, right? Like you need people to
No.
start up. Like if people you recommend they start up with Decline and ends with Reclamation. No questions asked otherwise.
Right, and I've never been a fan. I mean, even if I'm listening to an album that is shuffle friendly, as you put it, like I don't even like doing that. You know, usually I'll get in the car and I'm going somewhere, and I have to pick the first song on the album. I can't do anything else. I have to. So I end up with this problem if the drive's only 15 or 20 minutes. I've listened to like the first 3 or 4 songs of an album way more than I have the ending, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
The struggle of you listening to a Dream Theater album,
Yeah.
or God, how long did it take you to listen to the new Tool album? I'm afraid to ask.
Oh God. No, honestly, I haven't even listened to it, if I'm being honest.
Okay, well, you are missing out, but it's a great album. But
Yeah, no, I'm sure I am. Yeah.
but might need to take the day off just to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to like this inspiration, like when it comes to this, like with both of these albums, kind of going back to the references that you use, like, are you only looking at one sort of fantasy or one sort of sci-fi story that revolves around the whole album, or does each song kind of have like its own little story in a way?
No, it's definitely an overarching story throughout both the albums. And like each song plays a part in it, but maybe a chapter in the book, so to speak, I guess. But no, yeah, it's definitely one overarching story that goes throughout both albums.
And you think you're going to continue this with the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 100th album?
It depends. A hundred, I don't know. But yeah, I think I don't know. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah. And because, the world being what it is today, there's already a lot of subject matter you could create out of this. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can take inspiration from so much.
yeah. For you, do you find it easier to write music when you're the accompany of your other bandmates, or do you like to maybe, isolation being the fuel for creativity, what it is? Do you prefer to like maybe write more music when you're alone?
I definitely think, for me at least, I do better when we're all in the same room and we're all just kind of playing off of each other and really feeling each other out. Um, but I don't know. Eric and Cody can pump out some killer riffs pretty easy, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. And also being a three piece as well, like, right? Everything needs to count at the same time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And there's quite a bit that goes into trying to sound as massive as possible with only three people. Eric's running through a stereo guitar rig, and I run into a bass, and then I have an octave up into another guitar rig. So we're trying to make sure we get all the sonic space and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
know with a band like Slipknot having nine members,
yeah.
it might be hard to arrange practice all at the same time.
Oh yeah.
But when they're playing live, I'm pretty sure that one person could fuck up the rhythm and nobody would even notice. So, you guys are naked up there.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like we each have our own little domain, so it's like if any of us make a mistake, yeah, it's fairly obvious. So
Yeah.
trying to keep it as tight as we can.
Yep. And being a bass player too, because obviously it's rock and roll. We've all heard our fair share of terrible bass player jokes here and there.
Sure.
Being a bassist, like it has both an emphasis on rhythm and melody. So like, do you like when you're writing your bass parts? Is it easier to do you like listen to the drums before you track that, or do you listen to the guitars and follow the melody of that, or do you sometimes have a whole bass pattern written down and maybe the band will write revolving around that?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends, because sometimes there might just be a really cool rhythm that we're working with, and like the notes quite aren't there yet. But usually, we have the melody first, and then we kind of mess around with different rhythms until we get exactly what we want. So
Yeah. How do you know when a song is done?
I don't know. Sometimes you kind of just try to keep putting stuff in until you're just like, no, actually, this is making it worse. Let's use that for something else. Or sometimes it just happens. You finish jamming on what you just wrote, and it's just like, that's it. There's nothing else we need to do to that. Cool.
Yeah, fair enough. And the final question I wanted to ask you is the band is currently based out of Arkansas now, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, first off, we got to pay homage to who I consider to be the modern day kings of American Doom, Paul Bearer, coming from
Oh yeah.
Arkansas. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
and obviously, because of this bullshit pandemic, shows aren't happening at the moment. But, like, is there kind of like a scene in Arkansas, like an active metal scene that bands, are affiliated with in Arkansas? Or is it kind of like the goal to maybe go to your neighbors in other states to kind of get the name out there for Bones of the Earth?
No, there's plenty of, like, I mean, there's doom, sludge. I mean, there's all kinds of hardcore. There's plenty of heavier bands around here. It kind of depends. Little Rock obviously has quite a bit more. Like, it's just a little more active, so we try and play there whenever we can. But Fayetteville's got, we've got some pretty cool venues. We got George's, and we got Smoke and Barrel, and there's like a DIY spot called Backspace that we really like playing. But there's always plenty of bands to play with. So
Yeah.
and we got everything from super doomy stuff to we got like indie folk stuff, and everything in between. And it's kind of cool, honestly. There's plenty of music to listen to.
Yeah,
Well, there will be whenever
yeah.
it's okay to do
Yeah. Yeah,
that.
and people seem to forget. And when I remind people of this, they're so shocked. I mean, you could even trust this on Wikipedia, but Evanescence is started in Arkansas.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that's what I don't know. Yeah, you don't really think about it, but yeah.
Yeah, so Arkansas does have a great legacy, and I'm glad to be talking with another band. I think after Pallbearer, you're the second band I've interviewed from there, but seems like
Oh, really cool.
yeah. But
That's awesome.
yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for a great fun chat. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Bones of the Earth with the release of Eternal Meditations of a Deathless Crown, or like obviously when this pandemic is over, we'll be seeing Bones of the Earth on the road quite a bit, right?
Oh yeah. We'll try and get out on the road as soon as we can, as soon as it's safe. You know, we want to make sure that everything's all good with that. And yeah, as soon as we can, we'll be heading out as far as we can and for as long as we can. So
Yeah. Make sure you come to New York City, please.
Oh, we'll try.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
There's a stage at St. Vitus with your name on it, so.
Oh, dude, I would love that so much. I really would. It'd be awesome.
We would too. But thank you so much. Everybody, Bones of the Earth 2, Eternal Meditations of a Deathless Crown. Be sure to pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York.